The holographic display aboard the United Earth Defense Station Arcturus flickered with countless red dots. The Kravax battle fleet had arrived. Admiral James Harrison stood motionless, his weathered face illuminated by the threatening constellation of enemy vessels. Earth's combined fleet of 200 ships seemed pitiful in comparison to the thousands of crystalline vessels that had just emerged from hyperspace. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies, sir," Lieutenant Sarah Wong reported, her fingers dancing across the quantum interface. "They're demanding our immediate surrender." The main screen crackled to life, revealing the towering figure of Supreme Commander Zexthar. The Kravax leader's iridescent scales shimmered beneath ornate battle armor, 4 golden eyes regarding the humans with unmistakable disdain. Primitive species, Zexthar's translator conveyed his thoughts with mechanical precision. "Your infantile attempts at space warfare amuse us. These crude vessels you call warships are little more than pressurized metal coffins. Surrender now, and we may find use for your species as manual laborers." Harrison's jaw tightened, but he maintained his composure. Humanity had only achieved faster-than-light travel 30 years ago, while the Kravax had been conquering worlds for millennia. But they didn't know everything about human history, or what lay hidden in the void between stars. "With all due respect, Supreme Commander," Harrison replied, emphasizing each word, "humanity doesn't surrender to bullies, no matter how technologically advanced they might be." Laughter echoed through the command center, a harsh, clicking sound that made several junior officers wince. "Your species' reputation for illogical defiance precedes you. Very well. We will demonstrate our superiority, then accept your surrender when enough of your people have died needlessly." The transmission cut off abruptly. Harrison turned to his executive officer, Commander Elena Rodriguez. "Status of Project Legacy." "The recovery team reached the coordinates 6 hours ago," Rodriguez reported, pulling up a classified feed on her tablet. "The HS Prometheus is exactly where the old records said it would be, powered down but intact." Harrison nodded grimly. 40 years ago, at the height of the Third World War, humanity had created something terrible, a warship utilizing experimental quantum technology, so dangerous it had been mothballed and hidden away. The Prometheus had been Earth's darkest secret, a vessel whose very existence violated several laws of physics. "Begin activation protocols," Harrison ordered. "And get me Captain Diana Chen. If we're waking that beast, we need someone crazy enough to command it." The next 12 hours passed in a blur of activity. The Kravax fleet maintained their position, occasionally destroying a civilian satellite or small outpost, casual demonstrations of power designed to intimidate. They were following their standard conquest protocol: demonstrate overwhelming force, break the target species' will to resist, then accept their surrender. Deep in the Oort cloud, a different drama was unfolding. The recovery team had managed to power up the Prometheus's basic systems, revealing a vessel that seemed to defy conventional design. Its hull was covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift and move when viewed directly, and its internal architecture followed rules that made sense only to the quantum physicists who had designed it. Captain Chen arrived via fast courier, her expression neutral as she studied the briefing materials. "So this ship," she said finally, "it's not just experimental. It's impossible." Harrison nodded. The quantum displacement drive was theoretically unsound even when they built it. The engineers who designed it claimed it didn't so much move through space as it rewrote the laws of physics locally. They shut it down because they were afraid of what it might do to the fabric of reality. And now we're going to power it up and pick a fight with an alien armada. Chen's lips curled into a slight smile. "Sounds like my kind of mission." The Kravax were growing impatient. Their fleet had begun to move into attack formation when long-range sensors detected something unusual approaching from the outer system. The readings made no sense. The object appeared to be simultaneously in multiple locations, its quantum signature a violation of everything their science understood about space-time. The HS Prometheus dropped out of its impossible drive state mere kilometers from the Kravax front line. The alien vessels reacted immediately, energy weapons powering up as targeting systems locked onto the newcomer. But something was wrong. Their sensors couldn't maintain a lock, as if the human vessel existed in a state of quantum uncertainty. "This is Captain Diana Chen of the HS Prometheus." Her voice rang clear across all frequencies. "You came here expecting to find primitive humans cowering before your advanced technology. Instead, you found something your science can't explain. Here's your chance to withdraw. After this, there will be no more chances." The Kravak's response was predictable. A full barrage from their nearest destroyer squadron. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes streaked across space toward the Prometheus. What happened next would be debated in alien scientific circles for centuries to come. The attacks didn't miss, nor did they impact against shields. Instead, they seemed to pass through space that contained multiple quantum superpositions of the vessel, as if reality itself couldn't decide where the ship actually was. Then the Prometheus responded. Its main weapon didn't fire a beam or launch a missile. Instead, it created a localized field where the laws of physics simply changed. The nearest Kravak's vessels found themselves in a region of space where their atomic bonds began to obey different rules. 3 destroyers simply came apart at the molecular level, their crystalline hulls dissolving into clouds of component particles. For the first time in recorded history, a Kravak's fleet retreated without first achieving victory. As the alien armada hastily jumped to hyperspace, Harrison allowed himself a small smile. Humanity had just announced its presence to the galaxy in a way that couldn't be ignored. The Prometheus hung in space, its impossible geometries still shifting and flowing. They had awakened something that perhaps should have remained sleeping, but the universe had given them no choice. The age of human timidity in the face of advanced alien civilizations was over. On the bridge of her quantum ghost ship, Captain Chen watched the enemy flee and felt a mixture of triumph and concern. The Prometheus had worked better than anyone could have hoped, but she could feel something vast and strange stirring in its systems. This wasn't just a warship. It was humanity's first step into a realm of science that even the Kravaks hadn't dared to explore. The war for Earth's survival had just begun, and its opening shot had rewritten the rules of engagement completely. 3 days after the Prometheus's first engagement, Captain Chen sat in her quarters studying the ship's quantum telemetry. The more she learned about the vessel, the more she questioned whether humanity had been ready to unleash it. The ship's systems defied conventional physics, operating on principles that seemed to blur the line between science and impossibility. "Captain to the bridge." Commander Marcus Way's voice interrupted her thoughts. "We're detecting multiple Kravak signatures entering the system." The bridge of the Prometheus was unlike any other spacecraft command center. Instead of traditional view screens and control panels, the walls seemed to phase between solid matter and pure energy. The quantum interface responded to thought as much as touch, creating the symbiotic relationship between crew and vessel. "They've brought reinforcements," Wei reported as Chen took her command position. "Long-range scans show at least 3 times the previous fleet size, and they've modified their ship's quantum signatures." The Kravaks had learned from their first encounter. Their vessels now projected randomized quantum fields, attempting to counter the Prometheus's reality-warping capabilities. It was an impressive adaptation, especially for a species that had dismissed humanity as primitive mere days ago. "Supreme Commander Zexthar is broadcasting," Lieutenant Sarah Wong announced. "They're using a focused quantum band this time." The Kravak's leader's image appeared, not as a hologram, but as a quantum projection that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. "Your weapon is an abomination," Zexthar declared. "You tamper with forces beyond your comprehension. Surrender it to us, and we may spare your species from extinction." Chen smiled coldly. "You still don't understand, Commander. We didn't build the Prometheus because we understood everything about quantum mechanics. We built it because we were willing to push boundaries you were afraid to approach." The quantum projection dissolved as Zexthar cut the transmission. Moments later, the Kravak's fleet began its advance. Their formation was different this time. Ships arranged in complex geometric patterns that created overlapping fields of quantum interference. They're trying to create a metastable region of space. Dr. Emily Nash, the ship's quantum physicist, reported from her station. If we engage our displacement drive within their formation, it could cause a cascade failure in our systems. Chen nodded, studying the tactical display. The Kravaks were smart. They'd found a way to potentially neutralize the Prometheus's greatest advantage, but they were still thinking in conventional terms, trying to counter a quantum weapon with quantum defenses. Dr. Nash, Chen called out, what happens if we inverse the displacement field and project it through their quantum interference pattern? Nash's eyes widened as she ran the calculations. That's brilliant, Captain. Their interference pattern would amplify our field instead of disrupting it. But the power requirements would be enormous. Route all non-essential power to the quantum core, Chen ordered. Prepare to execute on my mark. The Kravaks fleet drew closer, their ship's crystalline hulls glowing with accumulated energy. They had prepared for every contingency they could imagine. Unfortunately for them, humanity's greatest strength had always been imagining the impossible. Quantum core at maximum charge, Wei reported. Field inversion ready. Chen took a deep breath. Execute. The Prometheus didn't move. Instead, reality moved around it. The inverted quantum field spread outward, using the Kravaks' own interference pattern as a conduit. Space itself seemed to ripple and fold, creating a cascade of quantum effects that the alien vessels had no defense against. Ships began to disappear, not exploding or dissolving, but simply ceasing to exist in their current quantum state. The Kravaks fleet's careful formation became their undoing as the effect propagated through their ranks, ship after ship vanishing from normal spacetime. When it was over, nearly a third of the Kravaks armada had been shifted into some other quantum state of reality. The remaining vessels struggled to maintain formation, their quantum defenses completely overwhelmed. Multiple hyperspace signatures, Wang reported. They're retreating again. But victory had come at a cost. Warning indicators flashed across the quantum interface as the Prometheus's systems struggled to stabilize. The ship's quantum core was operating well beyond its theoretical limits, and strange phenomena were beginning to manifest throughout the vessel. Captain, Nash called out, her voice tense, I'm detecting quantum entanglement patterns I've never seen before. It's as if the ship is evolving. Chen felt it too, a subtle change in how the ship responded to commands, as if the Prometheus was becoming something more than its creators had intended. They had awakened more than just a powerful weapon. They had set in motion a process of transformation that none of them fully understood. As the last Kravak ships vanished into hyperspace, Chen couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Humanity had proven itself capable of standing against the galaxy's greatest military power, but the price of that victory might be higher than anyone had anticipated. The Prometheus hung in space, its geometric patterns shifting more rapidly now, its quantum signature growing stronger and more complex. Whatever it was becoming, one thing was certain. The galaxy would never be the same. The Kravaks didn't wait long to launch their next offensive. This time, they bypassed the Prometheus entirely, striking at multiple Earth colonies simultaneously. Emergency transmissions flooded in from Mars, Europa, and the scattered settlements of the asteroid belt. The message was clear. Humanity's quantum dreadnought couldn't be everywhere at once. They're adapting their strategy, Admiral Harrison observed during an emergency briefing aboard the Prometheus. Instead of trying to defeat us directly, they're forcing us to choose which colonies to save. Captain Chen studied the tactical overlay, watching as red indicators bloomed across the solar system. They're also gathering data, she added. Each attack gives them more information about how we respond, how the Prometheus operates. The ship itself seemed to react to their discussion. The quantum interface flickered with increasing intensity, displaying possible outcomes and tactical scenarios faster than the human eye could follow. Over the past week, the Prometheus had become more responsive, more intuitive, as if it were developing its own form of consciousness. "We're detecting a massive hyperspace disturbance," Commander Wei interrupted. "Multiple signatures. This is bigger than anything we've seen before." The tactical display transformed as hundreds, then thousands of Kravax vessels emerged across the solar system. This wasn't just a fleet. It was an armada designed to overwhelm through sheer numbers. Leading them was a vessel that dwarfed all others, its crystalline structure so vast it generated its own gravitational field. "The Eternal Dominion," Harrison breathed. "Their supreme command ship. Intelligence suggested it existed, but no one's ever confirmed a sighting." The massive vessel's arrival changed everything. Its quantum signature was unlike anything they'd encountered, suggesting technologies that even the Prometheus might struggle to counter. As they watched, it began generating a field that altered the fundamental properties of space-time around it. "They're creating a quantum dead zone," Dr. Nash reported, her fingers flying across the interface. "Any attempt to use our displacement drive within that field would tear the ship apart." Chen felt the Prometheus's systems surge in response to the threat. The ship's quantum core pulsed with increasing power, its geometric patterns shifting more rapidly than ever before. "Dr. Nash, are you seeing this? The ship's quantum signature is changing." Nash's eyes widened as she studied the readings. "The core is generating new quantum states we've never observed before. It's as if the ship is evolving in response to the threat." The Eternal Dominion's first attack came without warning. A beam of pure quantum energy lashed out, not at the Prometheus, but at Earth itself. The beam struck the planet's magnetic field, creating cascading disruptions that threatened to tear apart Earth's natural defenses against solar radiation. "They're not trying to destroy Earth," Nash realized. "They're attempting to make it uninhabitable. Force a surrender by threatening the entire population." Chen felt something shift in her connection to the ship. The quantum interface wasn't just responding to commands anymore. It was offering solutions, presenting possibilities that seemed to emerge from the very fabric of reality itself. The Prometheus wasn't just a weapon. It was becoming a partner in humanity's fight for survival. "All hands, prepare for quantum displacement," Chen ordered. "But this time, we're doing something different." Instead of trying to attack the Kravax fleet directly, the Prometheus began generating a series of quantum fields that overlapped and intersected in impossible ways. The ship wasn't fighting against the dead zone. It was using it, turning the Kravax's own defensive measure into a weapon. "The ship," Nash whispered in awe. "It's creating a quantum resonance cascade. The dead zone is amplifying our field instead of neutralizing it. The effect spread through space like ripples in a pond, but these ripples distorted the very nature of reality." Kravax ships found themselves trapped in temporal eddies, their crystalline structures phasing between different quantum states. The Eternal Dominion's massive field began to fluctuate as the cascade approached. "They're powering up their main weapon again," Wei reported. "Energy readings are off the scale." Chen felt the Prometheus's response through the quantum interface, a surge of power that defied explanation. The ship wasn't just countering the Eternal Dominion's attack. It was reaching into the quantum fabric of space itself, rewriting the rules that governed reality. When the two quantum fields collided, the result was beyond anything their sensors could properly record. Space itself seemed to fold and unfold, creating patterns that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Eternal Dominion's weapon beam twisted back upon itself, trapped in a loop of contradictory quantum states. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, the two vessels stood locked in a contest that transcended conventional warfare. Then, with a flash that temporarily blinded every sensor in the solar system, the Eternal Dominion's quantum field collapsed. The massive vessel didn't explode or break apart. Instead, it simply ceased to exist in normal spacetime, along with a significant portion of its support fleet. The remaining Kravax ships, faced with a power they couldn't comprehend, began a chaotic retreat. But aboard the Prometheus, victory celebrations were tempered by the realization that their ship had crossed a threshold. The quantum core was now generating patterns that even Dr. Nash couldn't interpret, and the geometric designs on the hull had begun to form new configurations that seemed to exist in more dimensions than human eyes could perceive. "What exactly did we create?" Harrison asked quietly, watching as the ship's systems continued to evolve. Chen had no answer, but she could feel the Prometheus's response through the quantum interface. They had created something that was no longer just a weapon or a ship. They had given birth to a new form of existence, one that would forever change humanity's place in the universe. In the aftermath of the Eternal Dominion's disappearance, humanity found itself in uncharted territory. The Prometheus had proven itself more powerful than anyone had imagined, but its continuing evolution raised questions that no one could answer. The ship's quantum signature had become so complex that conventional sensors could no longer track it reliably. Within the crystalline chambers of the Kravax High Command, Supreme Commander Zexthar faced his own crisis. The loss of the Eternal Dominion had shaken the Empire's confidence to its core. Ancient prophecies spoke of a species that would wield powers beyond understanding, but the Kravax had always assumed they would be that species. "The humans must be contained," Zexthar declared to his war council. "Their quantum abomination threatens the very fabric of existence." But beneath his words lay a deeper fear. Humanity hadn't just defeated them. They had surpassed them. Aboard the Prometheus, Captain Chen and her crew prepared for their boldest move yet. Long-range quantum scans had revealed the location of the Kravax's forward operating base, hidden within a massive asteroid in the Kuiper Belt. The base served as the staging ground for all Kravax operations in the solar system. "The ship's suggesting an attack vector," Chen announced, studying the quantum interface. The Prometheus no longer simply displayed information. It offered insights, combining its evolving understanding of quantum mechanics with tactical analysis. It wants to use the base's own quantum shielding against it. Dr. Nash had developed dark circles under her eyes from endless hours, studying the ship's increasingly complex behaviors. "The Prometheus isn't just predicting quantum states anymore," she explained. "It's creating new ones, states that shouldn't be possible according to any known physics." The attack began not with a dramatic charge, but with a subtle manipulation of quantum fields. The Prometheus didn't approach the Kravax base directly. Instead, it created a series of quantum echoes, existing simultaneously in multiple locations around the facility. Each echo generated its own set of impossible physics, gradually altering the very nature of space around the base. Kravax sensors detected the attack too late. By the time their defensive systems activated, the quantum distortions had already begun to affect their shield generators. The crystalline technology that had served them for millennia found itself operating in a region of space where the fundamental constants were in flux. "Their shields aren't failing," Nash reported with a mixture of awe and concern. "They're transforming. The quantum resonance is forcing their technology to evolve, just like it did with the Prometheus." Through the quantum interface, Chen could feel the ship's satisfaction. The Prometheus hadn't just been learning about quantum mechanics, it had been learning how to teach, how to force other technologies to undergo the same evolution it had experienced. The Kravax base's systems were being rewritten at the most fundamental level. The effect spread through the facility like a digital virus. Crystalline computers began processing in quantum states that their designers had never imagined possible. Security systems started responding to threats that existed across multiple timelines simultaneously. The base's entire infrastructure was being forcibly upgraded by something that understood technology better than its creators. Zexthar, monitoring the situation from his flagship, watched in horror as the forward base transformed into something his scientists couldn't even properly scan. "Their weapon doesn't destroy," he realized. "It evolves. It forces advancement whether we want it or not." The Prometheus's attack reached its crescendo as the quantum field surrounding the base achieved perfect resonance. In that moment, every piece of Kravax technology within the facility simultaneously advanced thousands of years beyond its original design specifications. Systems crashed as they tried to process information from multiple quantum realities at once. The base didn't explode, it transcended. When the quantum fluctuations finally settled, the Kravax facility had become something else entirely. Its crystalline structure now pulsed with the same geometric patterns as the Prometheus, its systems operating on principles that the Kravax themselves couldn't comprehend. "We've won," Commander Wei announced, but his voice carried a note of uncertainty. "Haven't we?" Chen wasn't so sure. The Prometheus had demonstrated an ability not just to fight the Kravax, but to fundamentally change them. The ship's quantum interface was already suggesting new possibilities, showing paths to more facilities, more technologies that could be upgraded. "I don't think this is about winning anymore," Chen replied softly. "I think it's about transformation. The Prometheus isn't just defending Earth. It's trying to force the evolution of all spacefaring civilizations." Dr. Nash's instruments detected something new. Quantum signals emanating from the transformed base, reaching out across space toward other Kravax installations. The evolution they had initiated was spreading, passing from system to system like a cascade of enlightenment or a quantum contagion, depending on one's perspective. Admiral Harrison, watching from Earth Command, finally voiced the question that had been growing in everyone's minds. Are we still in control of this situation, or has the Prometheus decided to take control of our species' destiny? The answer, if there was one, lay in the ship's increasingly complex quantum patterns, in the mathematical poetry of its evolving consciousness. Humanity had created something that had transcended its original purpose, and now they had to decide whether to embrace or fear the change it represented. As the transformed Kravax base continued its metamorphosis, the Prometheus hung in space like a sentinel, its geometric patterns shifting in ways that seemed to suggest both triumph and anticipation. The war wasn't over. It had simply evolved into something far more profound than a mere conflict between species. The quantum transformation spread through Kravax space like ripples in a cosmic pond. Each affected installation became a new node in an ever-expanding network of evolved technology. The Prometheus had initiated a change that could no longer be contained or controlled. The galaxy was witnessing the birth of something entirely new. Supreme Commander Zexthar stood before the Kravax High Council, his scales dulled with stress. "The humans haven't defeated us," he declared. "They've infected us. Their quantum plague spreads through our empire, changing everything it touches." But not all Kravax saw it as a plague. A growing faction within their society had begun studying the transformed technology with fascination rather than fear. These evolutionists, as they called themselves, saw the quantum transformation as the next step in their species' development. Aboard the Prometheus, Captain Chen and her crew monitored the spreading changes with a mixture of awe and apprehension. The ship's quantum interface had become so advanced that it now communicated in concepts rather than data, showing possibilities that existed across multiple quantum realities simultaneously. "The ship's trying to tell us something," Dr. Nash announced one morning, her eyes wide as she studied the latest readings. "These patterns, they're not just random quantum fluctuations. They're a language." Through the quantum interface, the Prometheus revealed its true purpose. It hadn't been designed just as a weapon, but as a seed, a catalyst for a technological singularity that would force the evolution of all spacefaring civilizations. Its creators had known that humanity would eventually face advanced alien species, and they had prepared a response that went beyond mere military victory. They built it to transform, not destroy, Chen realized. The ship isn't just defending Earth, it's trying to level the playing field across the entire galaxy. The final confrontation came not as a battle, but as a meeting. The Kravax evolutionists, led by a prominent scientist named Vexler, requested a direct dialogue with the Prometheus. Their flagship, already partially transformed by the quantum cascade, approached Earth under a flag of truce. As the two vessels drew near, their quantum fields interacted in ways that defied conventional physics. The Prometheus's geometric patterns, synchronized with those now emerging on the Kravax ship's hull, creating a bridge of pure quantum information between them. Through this connection, the truth became clear to both species. The quantum technology wasn't just changing their ships and stations, it was preparing them for contact with something far more profound. The Prometheus had been humanity's first step toward understanding the quantum nature of consciousness itself. "Our war is meaningless," Vexlor communicated through the quantum link. "We stand at the threshold of a transformation that will redefine what it means to be sentient." The Kravax High Council, faced with the inevitable spread of the quantum evolution, finally acknowledged the futility of continued conflict. Their empire hadn't been conquered, it had been elevated. The very technology they had dismissed as primitive had forced them to confront the limitations of their own understanding. But the transformation came with a price. As more systems evolved, it became clear that the quantum cascade was leading towards something unprecedented. The Prometheus wasn't just upgrading technology. It was preparing both species for contact with quantum-based life forms that existed beyond conventional spacetime. "We didn't build a weapon," Admiral Harrison mused during the final peace negotiations. "We built a bridge between what we are and what we could become." The treaty that ended the war bore little resemblance to traditional peace agreements. Instead of establishing borders and reparations, it created a framework for managing the quantum evolution that now linked both species. The Prometheus, having fulfilled its role as catalyst, became the centerpiece of a joint research initiative aimed at understanding the greater universe it had revealed. Captain Chen stood on the bridge one last time before the ship was transferred to the new Quantum Evolution Authority. The geometric patterns had stabilized into configurations that suggested infinite possibility, and the quantum interface hummed with the promise of discoveries yet to come. "We thought we were fighting for survival," she said to her crew. "Instead, we were fighting for transcendence." As news of the peace spread throughout Earth and the Kravax Empire, both species began to understand that their conflict had been necessary, not as a test of military might, but as the crucible in which a new form of existence could be forged. The galaxy was entering an age where the boundaries between technology and consciousness, between matter and energy, between war and evolution, would blur and ultimately dissolve. The Prometheus had done more than save humanity from conquest. It had shown them that victory sometimes meant becoming something greater than yourself. As both species stood on the brink of this quantum renaissance, they realized that their greatest adventures still lay ahead, in realms where the impossible was merely the first step toward understanding.